Hello everyone, I'm Tom Hoover and this is my presentation for EdTech 532, The Adventures of Young Beowulf, an interactive fiction by me. One of the things that I had decided early on in the course was that I wanted to actually make the game. I didn't just want to design one, I wanted to make one and create it and produce it that I could use in my classroom with my students. I'm a high school language arts teacher. And so what I wanted to do with this, I wanted to develop reading skills by using authentic text and having the students have to read it closely. And I wanted to use the story of Beowulf. It's long been one of my favorites, and I've always thought that it would make an excellent video game. And so when we looked at interactive fiction earlier in the semester, I thought, this would be a great fit for what I'd like to do. And a little Googling around, I learned that I could make one of these stories. And so what I wanted to do is introduce the thematic elements of Beowulf, the importance of the leader, keeping the different tribes together, the importance of identity and reputation and loyalty for Beowulf in the story. And I wanted to highlight the Christian and pagan interactions that show up in the text. However, I didn't just want to copy the text, the storyline, and the plot, so I set my story early in the life of Beowulf when he's a young teenager and he's setting out about the world to learn these lessons. You can play my game online. There's the link. So feel free if you want to click over there and play around while you listen to me go on for a little bit. That would be fine. The game is an interactive fiction, and the funny thing is that when you look at all the sites talking about this, they never refer to it as a game. It's always story. And the player reads the story and chooses the actions of the main characters to go throughout the world. I built an open world. It's not linear. They can wander around doing whatever they want, but they do have to complete some things before they earn enough reputation to go on into the next quest. This is the overall map of my entire little world. It's not very big and complex. I would like my students to be able to complete this, in a class period and talk about it. You can see there are a couple different sections. This is just an example of the kind of text that the players will encounter. Here they come across Haribold's house, and they find Haribold laying on the ground, all bloody and beaten up. And he tells us that some wolves have attacked him, and so he can't move. But he has traps down in the forest that he needs to go retrieve the meat from, or he's going to starve in the winter. And he asks the player, will you go and get this meat for me? And the player answers yes, and he's happy. If the player answered no, then Haribold would abuse the player a little bit and tell them to go away. As they wander around our little world, the different people they meet aren't very friendly at first. In fact, Haribold's the only one that will even talk to them. And so they might go around, but nobody will give them anything to do, really tell them anything, until they have helped out Haribold. And when they bring the meat to Haribold, he's very thankful and appreciative, and he tells the player that he is going to tell everybody what a great guy you are. And that's pretty much how my game works. When the player goes around and helps everybody, then Brekka challenges him to a swimming race in the sea, and of course sea monsters attack. And if Beowulf kills all the sea monsters and gets the giant pearl at the bottom of the ocean, that's the winning condition for my game. Then it takes the player back to Higelac Mead Hall, where Higelac congratulates him and tells him what a fine young man he's grown up to be and how everybody likes him and he has great reputation. And now he's ready to be a great hero. And it just so happens that there's a traveling bard just arrived, ready to tell us the story of this big monster that keeps attacking this mead hall over in Denmark, which of course leads into the real plot of Beowulf. This slide shows my SSPL learning theory, a combination of social constructivism, situated learning, and project-based learning. One of the things that kind of troubled me a bit as I was writing this was that this is a single-player game. There's no talking with other people as they go. The player sits down, plays it, reads it himself, and does everything on their own. They do talk to other players in the game, and so there's some social interaction within the game, but I'm worried about there not being any outside of the game. Well, today, in class, I let my 8th graders try this out. So we had 13, 14-year-olds playing this all at once. And all of a sudden, all there was social interaction. Students were helping each other figure out the syntax to make the character do things. They were talking about how they, where they got, what they found, and then who they killed, and oh, who else can we kill? And before we knew it, everybody on the map was dead. I tried to keep a constructivist basis to the game by not really giving the player any directions at all, really. Other than the one driving task, the task parallel to the real world, where in the first scene, Higelac tells young Beowulf, "Get off your lazy ass and go out and make a name for yourself in the world." And they set off to do that, just like somebody would have had to do in the 8th, 9th century. However, if I wanted to have my students actually create their own interactive fiction, that would fit into this theory exceptionally well. As you can see, all the language is plain English. We write in sentences and we use punctuation to show certain meanings. As I was creating this game, it really felt like I was more telling a story than creating a game. And so we could really get into the creative writing, making the characters say things, characterizing them by what they say, typing out the scenery and the description and the narration. But the more I got into it and the more things I was trying to do, it really turned into just as much problem solving as writing. Trying to get the syntax to work, trying to figure out how to make certain things happen. And this led to a lot of collaboration. A lot of time with the... At one point, after trying to make one certain thing happen for an hour and a half or so, just banging my head against the wall, I went to the intfiction.org forums for interactive fiction, and I had my answer that worked perfectly within 10 minutes. It was a very engaging process, and that was something I wasn't kind of expecting. The more time I spent working on the game, the more I could see the world in my mind, and walk around in it, I could really picture the world better and better. It was also very rewarding. At the beginning, every sentence you would type, you would test it and compile it and see if there were any errors, and inevitably there were errors. But towards the end of my creating this game, I could type in a line as complex as this and know exactly that it was going to work, and then you hit the button and it does work, and you're so happy. This is a beta build. It's a complete beta. It works and we can do everything, but there are some things that I would change in the next version. First of all, the monsters need to fight back. I'm not sure why they don't from my perspective, the code looks right for them to fight back, but they never do. I'd also like to add character conversations to actually have the characters speak rather than have the characters speak through a description of the room. One of the things I would like to do is add followers for Beowulf, and every time he completes, or the player completes a certain quest and they get the reward, a follower would join them and follow them around and become part of his posse. And then have him have to hand out and divvy up every treasure they get, or they would leave him or get mad at him and kill him. I'd also like to add some multimedia, some sound files perhaps. I thought it might be neat to get some Old English in there to come up to read the description of a room or something. And, of course, adding multiplayer to increase the social interaction would be on my wish list as well.